Hey gang, Lou here from Jersey Shore Fabricators. Well, today we got a 2010 Scion XD. It's got the mighty fire-breathing 1.8 liter motor in it. Customer is complaining that there's a grinding sound coming from the front. They dropped it off. I didn't even have to get out of the driveway before I could hear everything just grinding itself away. Brakes are really jerky, telling me that it's probably metal on metal. Well, let's go ahead and get it jacked up and see what's going on. Okay, so we got the wheels knocked off of it, and upon first visual inspection, I'll tell you, I mean, it looks a lot worse on camera than it actually is. I don't feel any ridges, nothing I could catch my nail on. The inside feels pretty good. Let's see if I can get you guys in here. So the inside looks alright. Again, feels smooth. And over here on the driver's side, outside looks good. Again, can't catch my finger on anything. I do see a lot of really bright metal. So we definitely got metal flying around in here. Let's see what this inside looks like. Let's see. Oh, there it is. There she be. Right there where my finger is, there's a groove cut into that rotor. Alright, so that's not so bad. So at this point, go over to the parts store, grab some rotors, grab some pads, get these guys changed out, and then we'll take a look at the back and make sure that those are okay. The other thing we want to do while we're in here is we want to make sure that this caliper well, it feels like one of them is moving at least. We'll check the other one, but you want to make sure you have back and forth movement on the caliper. I've been over that in a bunch of videos, and we'll do it again here where we take these apart, grease them up, put it all back together. Alright, get some parts, I'll be back. Okay, so here's a better look at what's going on. Here's the outer pad. We can see we have like nothing. And on this side, I just came apart in two parts. There's our groove in the brake pad and nothing left on that. And there's our corresponding groove on the rotor. So that's the problem. So these are the caliper bolts are 13 millimeter. The caliper mounting bracket bolts are 17 millimeter, pretty standard. Most cars, I've never worked on a Scion before, so kind of figuring out as I go along, but it's all standard. So we'll check these. There's a frozen bolt. There's another frozen one. Let's see if we could save this. Alright, so the biggest problem that we have here, other than the fact that the brakes have ground themselves down to nothing, is that these little slide pins here, as you can see, are not sliding. So they turn, but they don't slide. So now the secret is how do we get these things to move and slide? A lot of times you can just work them back and forth and eventually they'll come out. And when you look on here, you see all this crust and corrosion and dried up grease and it's all crunchy. That's what's going to stop your brakes from working and wear out a perfectly new set of brakes. Now, this particular lady, broad if I dare, only because she likes that term, her problem is that somebody's put brand new rotors on this car. And they're destroyed because they didn't look after the calipers. So it's $150 out of her pocket and down the toilet. Now we got to do the job over for whoever did it the first time. So we'll come back and I'll show you how I'm going to clean them and get them working. Alright, so this one we're not so lucky with. It'll turn just fine, but it ain't coming out. So So sometimes you got to resort to other measures. Proper pry bar here. Proper hammer. There she goes. And again, we can see on here it's all dried and rotten and miserable in there, and there's supposed to be an O-ring. So back out to the store for more parts. Now, you know, some people argue whether or not to replace these clips that are in here. But the new brake pads come with new clips, so there's a reason why. But one thing I would like to see, pay attention, wherever, how much extra could it possibly be to put these little rubber boots and the little rubber dickies that go on the end of here? How much more could it cost you to include those with the brake hardware kit that's in the bag? Save everybody a lot of trouble. Anyways, I'm going to get this caliper cleaned up. We're going to put in new clips that come with the kit. And then I'll show you about cleaning out the holes here for the caliper slide pins. So, clips are out. Caliper's cleaned off. You want to pay particular attention here where the clips go. You want your clips to fit nice. They usually fit a little on the tight side to begin with. Now, like I said, for these, it's really simple for me. What I do is use a little bit of brake cleaner. And then I have an old paint gun cleaning brush. And this works great because you get in there, twist it around. Really get a lot of crud out of there. And that's most of the brake failures that I see is simply because the pins weren't sliding. Pins don't slide, the caliper don't move, grinds the brake pad right into the rotor, and you know, before you know it, within 5,000 miles, 6,000 miles, you get to do brakes again, or the customer gets to pay for another set of brakes. And it's not really fair to them, or if you're doing this for yourself. You know, it only takes a minute or two, and that's the difference between doing a good job and, you know, getting it up and running. I know a lot of guys, when I used to do, you know, line work, you know, they skip a lot of these steps and, you know, wonder why they either got a bad reputation or, you know, they had a lot of comebacks because of brakes failing, or they were always replacing brakes under warranty. So, a couple swipes in and out, and she should be as good as new. Now, in really, really bad cases, you can actually take this end of it here. Where the hell is it? Put it right in your drill and use that. Or you can use a stainless steel wire brush in there. But point is get it cleaned out. Okay, last thing to do is take a little disc brake caliper grease. Put it right inside of your anti-rattle pins. Put a little right on the edge of the brake pad here, right here where the wear surfaces are. And put everything back together into there. Well, now the job is done. And the installation is the reverse of disassembly. So you put your caliper bracket back on, push the piston back in, put a little grease around the piston. You're done. I mean, this isn't a how-to video. This is just a video that shows how I do things. Here's where I need to take off on a little bit of a rant. I will never, ever, ever buy wearever brakes again. The last few jobs I've done, I've never had a problem, but the last few jobs I've done, the brake pads do not fit the caliper brackets properly. They're very tight, and they shouldn't be. Now, I notice if I go to a different store, I'm, you know, AutoZone, okay, I'm not plugging them or anything, I'm just saying that it's right across the street from Advanced. And I use their brake pads and their brake pad hardware. Everything falls together just the way it's supposed to. So obviously something's wrong over at Wearever, and they're obviously not using the same factories. I didn't have time. The customer showed up to pick up the car. I couldn't go back out to the store to get a different set of brake pads from a different place. So I actually had to take my little die grinder and grind where the pad would slide on the caliper bracket. Okay, so you saw those little metal clips that I put in, and there's a little piece that comes out underneath there, and it's really not an interference type of thing. You know, your brake pads move inside the metal clips, but the brake pads physically wouldn't fit inside the caliper mounting bolt. It's the dumbest thing, the caliper mount rather. It's the dumbest thing ever. You know, you shouldn't have to grind a set of brake pads to get them to fit. So, look, I use Advanced for a lot of other things, not so much electronics, but I do use them for a lot of other things. But I will never, ever use wearever brake pads again. Okay, rant over. So, customer picked the car up, I put everything together, took it out for a drive. She was very, very happy. You know, $130 in parts, you know, $70 in labor, and there she goes down the road. And those mounts won't fail again. The other thing, there are some people who, depending on the job, they'll just automatically throw calipers and caliper mounting bolts on it. That's fine if they're cost effective. Your old Chevy trucks, you can get them for, you know, you can get calipers for $25. You know, I mean, on the Grand Wagoneers, it's funny. The calipers are $18. The core charge is $25. I was just going to start stealing people's calipers and turning them in for cores and making a bunch of money. Getting a caliper mount by itself sometimes is impossible. You know, you have to get the caliper and the mount. That puts it out of budget for the customer. So that's why I like to take things apart, clean them, put them back together. Everything was operating fine when I got done. You know, the nice free movement. But the key when you're doing brakes, believe it or not, are those, everybody ignores them, are those caliper slide pins. You know, that's what keeps a floating caliper floating. So, go out there, have fun, take something apart, put it back together, don't have any parts left over. If you learned anything, if you liked this video, you know, give us a thumbs up, give us a like, you know, go ahead and hit the subscribe button, and we'll see you on the next one.